Innovation transcends borders, so today we are going to explore science and technology in Malaysia and beyond. To introduce the speakers for this out-of-this-world session, please welcome Jason Goh, Director of Investments at Khazanah.
Thank you, everyone. So I think the first thing is everyone should congratulate themselves and feel really good that you are at the graveyard shift. We also have speakers that I think are kind of jet lagged. So, and you're probably pretty exhausted after all that knowledge being jammed into your head, and it's like potatoes. I'm not going to eat potatoes for 6 months after this, by the way. So let's give all of us a round of applause for surviving into the graveyard shift. And for the speakers that are jet lagged, I want them to get all pumped up for this, because obviously this is the best panel of the entire conference. So good afternoon. How do we move from potatoes to prosperity? I think for this panel, the answer is innovation. And innovation in all its different elements, not just technological innovation, but innovation in how society develops, business processes, financing, etc. So in Khazanah, and many of you are Khazanah alumni, you know that we sort of grapple with two things, right? We grapple with the theory, and we grapple with the implementation. Absent of theory, we are in the dark, looking for solutions without a roadmap, we're lost. So theory is essential. But there's also many of you who are CEOs in the room, and as all CEOs and CEOs know, absent of execution and implementation, theory results in failure and frustration. So I am so psyched that we have 4 speakers here today that are not going to talk about, not just about cutting-edge innovation, but how to implement innovation. So 2024 has been a pretty tough year for a lot of us. It's been a tough one for me. As I thought about the various stages of grief, I thought, hey, let's talk about the different stages of innovation. Naturally, CAC, I went to Perplexity to guide me. Thank you very much. So 4 stages of innovation. Ideation, the creative process that generates ideas. Development, the tough slog, year after year, day after day, months, getting the recipe perfected and finessed. Now comes the fun part, commercialization. Hisham Hamdan is like, money, 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 right? Achieving that elusive synergy between customers, markets, and distribution channels to proliferate innovation so that all of society can benefit, not just the privileged few. And the final stage, diffusion, where innovation is implemented holistically and sustained so that we can continue to re-innovate. I'm proud to present the 4 speakers who will they will talk about their businesses, obviously. Please reach out to them and learn more. But each of these speakers will carry us through each of the stage of innovation. Razlan Hamdan, the founder of Aphilia, a deep tech space company. We've been spending a lot of time with Razlan over the weekend, and he is one of the most enterprising, most amazing young men you will ever meet. He is taking on the big guns in the global space technology industry, and is a true inspiration. So I think we all have a lot to learn from him. And please, Razlan, stay close to us after Khazanah, because we want to keep very close touch with you. We're going to proceed with Dr. Michel Laberge. For full disclosure, Khazanah is an investor in General Fusion for a few years now. Michel and his team have been working on fusion technology that will provide clean, safe, and abundant energy to once and for all solve the world's energy and climate crisis. Now, fusion has been Dr. Michel's work. I cannot think of a better founder to talk about persistency, resiliency, and the need to complete one of the most challenging technological tasks known in humankind. Next, we'll have CAG. CAG will discuss commercializing and scaling a business. And as a GP, general partner to IVP, one of the most successful and storied venture firms in the Valley, CAG will talk about how innovative startups, when they hit that magical moment of inflection, what do you look out for companies before and when they hit that inflection? She will talk about that, and it's going to be a great session. Last but not least, it's about people and culture. So who better to talk about the impact of innovation on people, systems, and culture than Rohayu Ramli, who is the head of cyber strategy and architecture in Petronas, who obviously needs no introduction to any of us. I know you are all waiting in bated breath. So with that, over to you, Razlan.
Hello, guys. Okay. First and foremost, I would like to introduce myself. I am Razlan. I'm one of the founders of Aphelia. What is Aphelia? Aphelia is a space startup. We are building what we call wireless power technology for space applications. To be specific, on the moon. So, throughout my journey, I will be sharing in 3 parts. So first is about the bigger context. The bigger context of why Aphelia exists. What is the why of Aphelia? And the second part is about how did we get here? What is our journey? And I would say, what is our humbling journey? And the last part is that with Aphelia, what is the potential? What could this Aphelia make for Malaysia in the globally speaking? And so for the first part, for the context of Aphelia's why. First and foremost, humanity is going back to the moon. But unlike during the space race 1.0 in the 60s and 70s, this time we are going to the moon to stay. And recently there have been so many not only inspiring but unfathomable stories. Firstly, from India Chandrayans, who were the first ever country in human history to ever land on the south pole of the moon. And then the next part, Japan have successfully landed on the moon as well. And this is not enough. Of course, America, through their private company, after more than 60 years, have gone back to the moon. But the focus here is that, if you guys have been following the news in the space industry, especially for the moon, everyone is rushing to go to the south pole of the moon. And the reason why is because there's abundance of ice water on the south pole of the moon. The reason why ice water is so important, obviously, is because to sustain life, to sustain a civilization on the moon. Obviously, from the water itself, and then from the oxygen, and also from the hydrogen as a rocky fuel to go from the moon. However, that is just one, but yet simple, yet major problem. And that is, ice water is only available on the dark, permanently shadowed craters on the moon. And what this means is that as there's no sunlight, no solar power, and no solar power, that means no electricity, especially when it comes to mining the ice water on the moon. And that is why this is where Aphelia comes in. We are building what we call a wireless energy grid on the moon, where we deliver electricity from the sun area of the moon to the permanently shadowed dark craters of the moon, so that we provide accessible electricity wirelessly, instead of using cable, wirelessly to our customers on the dark side of the moon, so-called dark side of the moon, to do mining activities, mine the ice water, and build life. So, on top of that, I would like to share, what is the biggest question? Why do we go back to the moon? Why bother go to the moon? There are 2 main reasons. Number one is, of course, maybe has been heavily influenced by some American guy, his narrative, let's go to the Mars, and this is where the moon comes in. Moon as a pit stop to go to Mars. But for me personally, I'm most excited about not exactly to go to the moon, to go to the Mars, but actually for the second reason, and that is mining helium-3 on the moon. The reason why this is profound is because with respect to Earth, when it comes to energy sustainability, helium-3 is important for nuclear fusion, which is one of our speakers here. It's working on fusion, right? So helium-3 is so important to solve energy sustainability on Earth, but there is one problem. Helium-3 is so rare. It's so rare on Earth that nobody wants to touch because it's so rare. But on the moon, it's so abundant, we are talking about 1.1 million tons of helium-3. And according to the price of the helium-3 right now, it is worth quadrillion dollars of helium-3 on the moon. We don't have to go to asteroid, no, just go to the moon, much closer. And so, I know this may sound silly, this may sound like very sci-fi, seems like unfathomable, but there have been some progress that makes this closer from sci-fi to science fact. Recently, from the China Space Agency, they have managed to bring back moon samples from the moon back to Earth. So obviously, this is so important because we need to get the helium-3 back to Earth, and this is so closer. And let's bring back from the countries back to Ophelia. How is Ophelia closer to the reality from sci-fi to science fact? So for Ophelia, we have managed to get a prospect customer from LA, California, Astrolab, where they are building energy infrastructure by using Ophelia's technology. And the second is, we have already got a prospect customer called Solsys, which is based in Norway, Europe, where we provide electricity to this company to do agriculture stuff on the moon. On the other hand, much closer a bit to Earth, we have also announced our partnership with a Canadian-based space company called Spatium. It's kind of exciting. They are building space station, kind of like gas station, where they service satellite. And one of their services is Energy Hub to wirelessly deliver energy to satellite customer using our technology. So, because of our traction in the space industry, Ophelia has been part of the global ecosystem map, or shall I say, universe ecosystem, yeah, in the space power sector. And you guys can see on the top left corner, Ophelia. On top of that, bringing it back closer to home in Malaysia, Ophelia is one of the founding committee members of MASIC, Malaysia Space Industry, where our mandate is to build the space industry through domestic and international collaboration, and we have been officiated by our very own Prime Minister last year. So now, how did we get here? What is the story? What is the journey behind Ophelia? And here I would like to share the story of some UiTM students. So for me, I am a student in UiTM. My background is in electrical engineering, and I have been focusing on the R&D of wireless power technology. And of course, my generation, I'm so excited about startup. This is gonna be my life, building a startup out of it. And then the first step was, during my degree study, was working on wireless charging for smartphones and also for some electronic gadgets. However, just like any startup story, we have hit the brutal reality have hit us. The problem is not painful enough for the solution to solve. There is a safety regulatory limitation, and that while we have the anxiety, we have the insomnia, cannot sleep, this is the end of the world, and suddenly, something out of the world happened. And that is the first ever rocket landing, not on the moon, but on Earth. Yeah. So, honestly, to make it even more exciting, some guys decided to send a car to the space. So obviously, this is so inspiring for me personally and also to my team. Like, this is so out of the world. And at the same time, for our case, okay, let's do industry insight. Let's do market study in the space industry. And then we started looking into the satellite industry, and we have learned that on average, more than 1,800 new satellites that is going to be launched until year 2030. That is a good market opportunity, right? And then the first step we did was We went to Singapore, me and my co-founder met. We went to Singapore, talked to satellite companies as our prospect customers. And from then, we talked to some really, honestly, not only very amazing individuals, but also very humble people. And from there, we started working on an idea where we build a satellite, or we call it wireless charging stations that can charge other customer satellites in space. And on top of that, we aim to build like a network, or we call it constellation, a constellation of wireless charging stations around the equator, so that our customer satellite, they can get energy whenever they come into our coverage area. And then we started developing our core technology. I hope you guys find it interesting. So we are building wireless power technology using radio frequency, but the difference is that in terms of benchmarking, compared to other prospect or competitors, we are working on a way higher frequency. And to be specific, I'm talking about millimeter wave. And because of that, we also have developed our own semiconductor chip, because that is so important to improve the efficiency. And as a benchmark, not only we are 60% way smaller in size, but also we are way more efficient. And to be specific, this is kind of like visually how it looks like, our technology. There's two parts, on the front and the back. On the front is our antenna, where it radiates the energy. And then behind is our own semiconductor chip we designed ourselves. As part of our technical progress on the right side, that is how much smaller ours is compared to the left. And we have, in terms of technical progress, this is some of our prototype for antenna. We did some testing already in UTM, Samara, KL, and we have got some really, really great results. And on top of that, while we have got a really great result of our core technology, we have already started working on our semiconductor chip, our very own. So obviously, I blurred it out, but because of our technical progress, not only we are way smaller, and also we are way more efficient. And the reason why I'm sharing this is that while we are working on our moonshot, because of our technical progress, we have been received, and we are currently closing deal for a specific Earth-based customer. And obviously, we are not able to share purely because of the nature of the customer sector itself. For those who understand, I hope you guys can get it. So, I have been talking about satellite, right? How did Moon come into the picture, right? So it all started end of last year. End of last year, we won the Malaysia Startup World Cup. Although, as a football fan, Malaysia have not qualified for the FIFA World Cup, but at least we've qualified already. So, yeah, we won the Startup World Cup, and part of the perk is that we went to San Francisco, the heart of the startup ecosystem, the heart of the innovation around the world. We went to SF, and it was honestly a very inspiring and humbling journey. And on top of that, obviously, settled in this SF, we went down south to the LA to meet really inspiring company, went to SpaceX, and also some interesting startup in power space. And then, while we were competing in the Startup World Cup, we actually received an interest from a moon company called Astrolab. So this is where Moon comes into the picture. And honestly, this is kind of like humbling, because we didn't go to the moon, Moon came to us. So, yeah. yeah. So we met this guy, and then long story short, earlier this year, we have already signed a deal with them, where they build the energy infrastructure, the wireless power technology, use our technology. So honestly, I'm over the moon. I'm over the moon. Pun intended. Yeah. So going back to the present day, we have been actually introduced by a gentleman called Sebastian. He's the founder and ex-CEO of Think Orbital. What they do is honestly super exciting. They are building in-space welding system. So kind of like the narrative for his company is that to enable construction in space, rather than build a spacecraft on Earth and then send on the rocket, let's build it in space. So that is the narrative of his company. But what makes him interesting is that they are the only company that won contracts alongside SpaceX and Northrop Grumman. And on top of that, they have won contract from NASA, US DoD, and also European Space Agency. But honestly, what makes him even more exciting, Sebastian joined us. This is the best part. So the reason why I'm sharing this is that, honestly, someone like Sebastian, who is honestly kind of like the non-famous version of Elon Musk in the space industry, yeah. So this is a huge testament. This is a huge testament to the hidden gems of Malaysian talents. Speaking of hidden gems, let's zoom out at a macro scale. What about Malaysia as a country, as a hidden gem? Not the talents, not the Malaysian talent, but Malaysia as a country. Within the space industry, the context of space industry, Malaysia is so blessed in terms of our geographical position, because of we are on the equator. This makes Malaysia the sweet spot, if I may, the sweet potato spot to launch rocket from space, from Malaysia to space. Yeah. And on top of that, to make it even more exciting, an adjacent progress. I'm talking about semiconductor industry. Given the support of the semiconductor industry and the development of the semiconductor industry, we are not just talking about rocket from Malaysia to space, but I'm talking about end-to-end. Input raw materials, build the supply chain of the semiconductor, of course, combined with other subsystems, build a spacecraft, go to spaceport in Malaysia, not airport, but spaceport, and go to space. End-to-end in Malaysia. That is the potential. On top of that, in another context, let's talk a little bit about the geopolitical. So, in the context of global cooperation, and now given the rise of the middle power, which obviously I'm so not only excited, but I'm so bullish. I'm so bullish about Malaysia's role in the global cooperation. And I think this is so enticing because, especially Malaysia, as a neutral country, as long as we are still in a non-aligned movement, this is so exciting. This is like, it's not, the world is not just a few countries or superpower, but the world is a holistic. We are all global citizens. And space is one of the industry I genuinely believe, of course I'm biased, so of course space is one of the many sweet potatoes for Malaysia. And speaking of sweet potatoes of the space industry for Malaysia, I want to bring it back to home, Malaysia specifically. Because space is an unfairly inspiring industry. Who else can say I'm going to the moon, right? Who else can say we are going to the space? And because of how unfairly inspiring space industry is, let's think about the impact for the younger Malaysian generation in terms of the reduced intake of secondary school who want to take STEM field. Imagine what is the impact of working in the space industry, and not just talking about inspiring, hoo-ha, everything. No, this is also about the legit trickle-down impact, economical impact of space industry to the adjacent Malaysia industry, especially semiconductor, electrical and electronic engineering industry, and many other industries. In fact, cultural, so many more. Besides that, honestly, I actually keep thinking about the rocket in Malaysia because in terms of the narrative of Malaysia's potential in the space industry, I would encapsulate the narrative, the marketing narrative in this way. I genuinely believe that Malaysia has the potential to be the gateway to stars. So imagine that humanity from Earth, if you want to go to the space, go to the Mars, go to the moon, or go to asteroid mining for the benefit of Earth, everyone go through from Malaysia. And I think that is so inspiring, not only for my generation, for all the generations here, and also, the most importantly, the most important stakeholders of this entire complex ecosystem is the younger generation, or the young kids who were just born, seeing the bright eyes, understanding about this story. I think that is the most humbling part. It's all about the everyday Malaysian people. It's all about the everyday global citizens. It's not just country, it's not just private company, it's all the everyday people on Earth. So with that, if there is one, actually this is two. So if there's one key takeaway, if you guys don't remember everything about us, if you guys only remember one thing, I will say this. Me, my co-founder, my team, every day when we are in the speaker engagement, the story is not just about inspiring, but it's actually about unfathomable. It's all about going from impossible to the possible. It's all about any ordinary people can choose to be extraordinary. And that is why for the common quote of the sky is the limit, not anymore. Sky is not the limit. The only limit is your will. You have the will to find potatoes, sweet potatoes, any kind of potato that can have, honestly, diverse kind of impact to every human aspect, every aspect in the human civilization. So with that, I would like to end it. Thank you so much, everyone.